you see human nature as innately perfectible, then you're going to have to find perfect humans somewhere in the world, which...
No, you don't have to find perfect humans. That doesn't even... What even would that mean? Like, when Rudyard is saying, yes, you have to find the perfect human, like, what does that mean? Perfect in what way? It doesn't mean anything. There is no perfect human. Never has been. There's no perfect human society. Never has been. But our goal on the left is to improve society as much as we can. Then we hand off that society to the next generation and they improve it as much as they can, and so on and so forth. And sometimes we're going to screw up, sometimes we're going to do better, but the ultimate project is one that is perpetually ongoing. The same way you can work on improving yourself. You know, think of it like kind of like a self-improvement kick, right? Like, you want to improve your mile time. But what does it mean to say you're going to get the perfect mile time? That doesn't... It's subjective. There is no perfect mile time. You know, time in which to run a mile. But you can seek to improve yourself. You can seek to do better than the last time. Faster than the last time you went. Longer for the last time you went. And like, that's good enough. It is good enough to do better than what came before. That is the entire history of the human project. And nature doesn't have a goal, exactly.
The regime projects onto tribal cultures.
And like, self-improvement is just good because it makes us happier. It makes us stronger. It helps us to cope. Like, it's not because we need to seek to be perfect. But like, similarly, it benefits us to try and better our society because that effort can make us better. It can help other people, and that's just good. We should seek to do that.
They projected these traits onto tribal cultures, which they called peaceful, egalitarian, feminist, sexually loose, or simple. Well,
some indigenous cultures are actually more egalitarian than others. Some are more feminist than others. Like, it's all relative.
That was true. Tribal peoples are sexist, hierarchical, enslaving, warlike, religious, superstitious, and brutal at the same time. These are...
Yeah, because some societies are brutal. Some are less brutal. But they don't deserve having an army just show up one day and, like, wipe out half of them and then tell the remaining half, like, we're gonna chop off your hands unless you mine enough gold or rubber for us.
Nearly universal traits. The left pretended the Native Americans were peaceful, noble savages.
No, actually. That's... The idea the way you're getting that is by watching, like, Lone Ranger serials from, like, the 1950s, because all of your information comes from books written in the 1950s, my guy. The only people who would have ever told you that, yes, Native Americans, they're only good, that they are noble and simple. Like, the people who tell you that are conservative racists. People on the left just view indigenous folks as people, but have a vested interest in, like, finding out more and learning more about cultures and civilizations that came in the past or still exist to this day. Like, it's just having a fundamental curiosity about the world and fostering it.
Living in harmony with nature, but they, alongside other tribal peoples, had a death rate in war.
Hear me out. What if we treated Leo like people on individual basis in a way befitting their words and actions?
Treated Leo? Who's Leo? But thank you for the $5 dono.
Of 20 to 40% of young men each generation.
Yeah, but also, like, people can say, hey, that's pretty bad. I also want to say the argument here that Europe and the United States during the 20th century, that is a very interesting little time period, isn't it? Because you're comparing these different societies or tribes, right, over, say, the entirety of their existence to the existence of Europe and the United States in the 20th century by warfare. And like, there are a lot of there's a lot of work being done here by the framing of this. Right?
People like people. I recently turned autocorrect back on for faster typing and I'm already regretting it.
Indeed, Nathan. Thank you for the $5 dono. But when you look at, for example, percentage of male deaths caused by warfare, which group of people do you think is bigger? The entirety of Europe and the United States, or the Jivaro? Just out of curiosity. I'm just actual question. Which do you think is bigger? The answer is the entire population of Europe and the United States. Do you think that maybe internal conflict amongst the Jivaro might exist in such a way that perhaps this percentage is not achievable in Europe and the United States without killing, like, I don't know, 200, 300 million people in a go? The answer here is that, like, the Jivaro people have a very different kind of culture and civilization in which they highly value the enacting of violence. And not only that, but the violence, when you actually start looking at their culture, because I know which culture is at the top of this list, because racists bring this up a lot, and that is that in their culture, killing men is one of the ways that they compete for, you know, women, essentially. Like, women are viewed as property, and power is shown by committing violence and, like, eliminating your competition in some cases to the point of death. And so there are not big groups of Jivaro. You know, in some cases you can come across like anywhere from like 50 to 70,000 in total, but like they don't all live together. Again, the idea that this is equivalent to, well, you know, Europe and the United States during the 20th century didn't do that. This is just, I feel like if you would, sorry, I'm babbling a little bit. If Rudyard didn't involve the amount of death and killing that Europe and the United States did via colonialism from like the beginning of the transatlantic slave trade, to modern day, I would argue that that percentage would be significantly higher. If you look at the number of young men, or men in general, killed by settlers, killed deliberately via infection of smallpox, killed deliberately via biological warfare, killed deliberately in the effort of forcing indigenous people to extract resources, killed by, simple casual acts of violence to entrench power. I would argue that perhaps Europe and the United States would be towards the top of this list. Yeah, also, what about women and children? Those numbers would increase incredibly. Exactly. This is a very narrow section of death.
Most civilized populations are 1 to 2% at most. The left needed the tribal peoples to mimic their own moral intuitions to make civilization look like a...
Oh, God.
Tribal peoples to mimic their own moral intuitions to make...
Saying that traditional tribal peoples are anthropologically closer to Western conservatives than Western leftists is a funny thing to say, since what I really mean is that the Western left is an absolutely insane outlier on an anthropological or neurological basis as cultures go versus any other societies in history. The Western anthropological ethics is already in its own dimension, but then the left or modernists take those traits and go several standard deviations out. Ironically, the left has some similarities with tribal cultures like moral degeneracy and lack of seriousness, but these are minor in big picture. Dude, fuck off with this racism, my guy. The United States is literally founded on principles obtained from the Iroquois Confederacy. Like, shut the fuck up with this racist bullshit.
Civilization looked like a mistake, but said tribal peoples had a lot more in common with conservatives, while the left are statistical freaks anthropologically.
Again, you can only think this if you don't know anything about anthropology. The entire... he's throwing around the word anthropologically a lot here, but like, anthropology is not about judging past civilizations. It's about studying how their culture and society worked and being able to present that with arguments to back up, like, this is how they operated and this is, you know, what they thought about different things. Like, it is to extrapolate what their society was like so we can better understand them, and by better understanding them, also better understand ourselves and others around us. It is entirely based not upon judgment, which is what, you know, Rudyard wants to use it for. He wants to use anthropology to create like some kind of moral assessment program. But like, and like, you can also criticize different societies that existed in the past. Rome wasn't always sunshine and daisies. Neither was the Incan Empire. Like, neither were the Aztecs, but, you know, different societies are different. You can find things to like and respect about every single society that has ever existed, with one exception: fuck the Nazis and fuck the fascists. But the point is, we study these things so that we can learn, grow, and understand, and do better.
One of the more insane things the establishment pushed was that there were no tribal migrations across early human history. I watched a documentary as a child.
That's bullshit, though. That's not true. Like, at all.
That said that the Anglo-Saxon migrations never occurred, with the Celts peacefully taking Saxon language and culture. That just doesn't make sense if you know human nature.
I'm sorry, it makes perfect sense, because in order to take language and culture...
But Jack, have considered the reality you've been living in is a lie. Proceeds to quote a whole Whatifalthist video.
God, guys, I have 45 minutes left in me, and I don't know if we're gonna make it to... I don't know if we're gonna make it to part 3 tonight, because part 3, I think, starts at like the 51-minute mark or something. We're at 35 minutes in. It has taken us like 2 hours to get this far on part 2, and we're not even halfway through it. God damn it. Also, Nathan, thank you for the $5 dono. Yeah, exactly. Timothy Richardson. It is basic scientific observation, but he wants to rush to judgment. It's really, really gross. Also, so we're talking here, right, about how could the Celts have learned the language and ways peacefully? And it's like, well, because people don't need to fucking stab each other the second they see each other. They can just talk or attempt to communicate or trade or like, you know, like...
Rudyard is literally what happens when you apply the logic of RPG races like elves and dwarves with debuffs and apply it to real people.
Quigley, he literally opened this video talking about Warhammer 40k. So you're not wrong at all. And like, the issue is, culture isn't necessarily tangible. It's ideas, it's practices, it is, you know, just language even.
Part 3 starts at 53 minutes between the derailing of stream and Rudyard's dumbass "we ain't finishing tonight."
Oh yeah, we're not finishing this video tonight, no. But that being said, we are going to soldier on for as long as I can. So yeah, actually it makes perfect sense. For example, you can learn about Dia de los Muertos and hold your own celebration of Dia de los Muertos and pay respect to your ancestors. and also learn how to speak Spanish. And in order to do that, you don't actually need to go and kill people from Mexico. Like, like in his logic, in order to learn, practice, and appreciate like Mexican culture, you would first have to kill them and take it from them, which is just some of the most moronic bullshit that I've ever heard in my life.
There were also wide-scale theories for decades that the Aryan invasions never happened, which would mean that a majority...
Oh, good. Oh, good. We're only halfway into the video, and he's talking about the Aryan invasions. Got to build up that history for the esoteric Nazism, I guess.
Of people in the world's languages are invalid, with a region stretching from Bengal to Ireland just not having their culture, alongside of...
Like, nah, it's kind of like sometimes... Can we just like take a quick look here? We're looking at a time period of 500 years. Hey guys, do you know what the cultural practices of your ancestors 500 years ago were? Because I fucking don't. I don't know that. Like, even just on this point alone, it's like, well, 500 years isn't long enough for culture to change. Are you sure about that? Are you sure about that, though? God. Oh, God. Wrong button.
I feel like this guy has a superbar like a fighting game, except instead it's a Nazi meter.
I know what my ancestors were doing 500 years ago, being robber barons. I mean, I know what my ancestors were doing 500 years ago, and it was farming, more farming, and the occasional seduction of a king. Okay? The three activities of my family. But I couldn't even begin to tell you what their holidays were, what their cultural practices were, what kind of items were super important to them, other than, obviously farming implements. Like what did they eat? I don't know, some kind of gruel? I don't know. My cultural perspective is rooted in where I am now, not what my family was doing 500 years ago. Occasional seduction of a king. What king is Jack related to? I'm not related to a king. But my grandma told me last time I saw her that one of my great ancestors.
My ancestors were screwing in a pit like real degenerates, huzzah.
My grandma told me that one of my ancestors was taken as the concubine of a Norwegian king. So I don't know which one, but that's pretty neat, I guess. One of the few ways a farmer's daughter could climb the social rankings, I guess. I do like me some Swedish meatballs and rumagrat. I just don't know if my family was wealthy enough to have either of those things.
People in the world's languages are invalid, with a region stretching from Bengal to Ireland just not having their culture, alongside a very purist
I know what my ancestors were doing 500 years ago and what my descendants will be doing 500 years from now. Jacking it.
Yes, the ancient cultural tradition of jacking it. But now, in the modern era, jacking it takes on a very different context in the year 2025, because I'm here. And by jacking it, you are in fact improving your mind and your body in some form or fashion. And one of the most effective ways to jack it is by liking the stream, leaving a comment, subscribing, obviously, to YouTube and following on Twitch, and also considering to financially support the stream as well, because you guys make this show possible, and I genuinely could not make it through a single one of these godforsaken segments if it weren't for you people.
We worship the great Riverboat by jacking it.
Exactly, Nathan. Thank you for the $5 dono. Also, I do want to note that the Aryan invasion that he's talking about is largely theoretical and based upon ideas that were prevalent in the 1800s, which, surprise, surprise, is what influenced the Nazis in Nazi Germany to to be talking about the Aryan peoples. It's basically like if someone today started talking about Atlanteans and how we're actually secret descendants of the Atlanteans. If you've got blonde hair and blue eyes, you're actually descended from mystical mermaids from Atlantis, and you have the divine right to rule. Like, that's essentially the kind of argument that this guy is making. And there's no archaeological evidence for what he's claiming. And, like, the biological evidence of, like, DNA tracking also seems to contradict his theory. So, like, you know, there's really no hard proof about what he's talking about when it comes to the Aryan invasions. Just want to throw that out there. Also, was Atlantis even real? No! If you want to know more, the basic premise is Plato wrote about Atlantis. Like, that's it. Plato talked about Atlantis, and it was basically just a made-up place that was convenient for his hypotheticals and fiction writing. So, like, it was never a real place, or if it was loosely based on anything, it certainly wasn't a mythological island nation with hyper-advanced technology that was rediscovered in the hit Disney film Atlantis: The Lost Empire. Also, Plato didn't know what he was fucking talking about. There isn't an actual Atlantis. There is not. That doesn't exist. It never did. It's like if I was talking about a place called Turnip Town. Yes, the classic and hyper-advanced civilization of Turnip Town. It lives far off in the north, in the highest reaches, a hyper-advanced northern Turnip Town. One would think Turnip Town would be in a more, like, mild climate, and yet Turnip Town exists in the far icy wastes of the north, a microclimate created by advanced technology and a unique arrangement of stones. And, like, this is what Plato's doing. And then he's talking, and you see there's a very unique way of governing in Turnip Town, predicated upon the use of various sticks of varying sizes, because sticks, you see, in Turnip Town are a rare commodity. The microclimate allows for the growing of turnips, but not for the growing of trees. And, like, then I write all of that down about Turnip Town, and 1,000 years hence, people are like, we need to send an expedition to the mild climes of the North Atlantic Ocean, and find the mythical Turnip Town. Their technology would be very useful for us. Are the Turnip Townians hot, though? They're the hottest. I live in the UK. Turnip Town is 100% real. Oh, no.
Interpretation of the out of Africa theory. For decades, the idea that tribal peoples left Africa as a single migration with no mix.
Jesus Christ. No one was ever saying one giant, like, God, he thinks about everything in the dumbest possible terms. Like, he's like, oh, you thought there was one big migration? It's like, when they're talking about the fucking migration out of Africa, they're talking about over, like, the span of, like, 1,000 years. We're talking about, like, a period of time that is multiple human generations of people slowly moving around. Not just, like, one massive Katamari ball of humanity rolling across the earth over the span of, like, a month. Like, God damn it. No Turnip Town, only Rockville and Colton. God. Are we writing a new Undertale game right now? Is that what's happening?
Out was taken as a doctrine among archaeologists.
No, it wasn't, you stupid fuck.
To give you an idea of how little we know about truly ancient cultures, Plato wasn't even his name. There's evidence to suggest that was his wrestler name, like The Rock. Imagine The Rock teaching Philoso.
You know, a lot of people called him Plato, but his friends called him Disho. It's true. Mistranslation. You know, we thought he was just talking about the Plate-O's, but turns out he was talking about a wide variety of dish-O's.
I spoke to an archaeologist who said that the idea that tribal peoples migrated into others' land was insane. What we found with genetics data is that prehistory was a constant migration, with around half a dozen.
Yeah, well, because people interact with the people around them, right? And then some people are like, I want to start a new place over there. We're going to go. And then, like, groups break up, groups move. Droughts happen, floods happen, like people who are largely settled in one area move to another. Like, it's not
But Graham Hancock
that
claims
difficult.
it must exist as no credible archaeological evidence there never was an Atlantis.
I hate Graham Hancock so much.
Google debunkers.
And genocides in
God, we need to get some Google debunkers on Rudyard content. I feel like I'm the only one fighting a losing battle.
ethnic replacements in Ice Age Europe. This was obvious to someone who understands human nature. On top of this, different human populations have intermarried with non-human species to differing degrees, and
the fact that he uses race is such a red flag. The Egypt race, the Syrian race, the Zagros race. I can't, dog.
Jack, please, when will we do another spirit science video, please?
I mean, we're basically doing a spirit science video right now.
we now acknowledge that humans did.
It's taken us 15 minutes to get through 1 minute of this bullshit.
Plato was an idiot. Diogenes
Not
was
cleanly
right.
evolve
Plato
in
was not the
Africa
Whatifalthist
with migrations
methods.
back and forth.
God, we need we need Rudyard to encounter his Diogenes. I don't know if that's me, but
Different groups of humans evolving in isolation. Questioning any of this in the late 20th century was taboo. Asking if Neanderthals
no, it wasn't in the late. God damn it. Part of the reason it was taboo was because people had already been asking those questions for the last 150 years, and the answers debunked them at every conceivable turn.
or other groups of Homo, like the Denisovans, mixed with
Did he just say non-human species? Yeah, he's talking about, like, other branches of the human species, you know, like Neanderthals.
humans used to be taboo until the genetics evidence came out. The thing I can't stand was the staggering arrogance of the older order. Political science and sociology are also utterly falsified as fields. Sociology fits with everything we've said so far, but political science is since there's no actual analysis of what works politically. People will make rationalistic sounding arguments. To be frank, there's no analysis where socialism in the long term works. You have
Yeah, there is. That analysis is democracy.
Speaking of which, I got to meet Milo Rossi. He's way shorter than you'd think and a major motorcyclist.
Yeah, he has like an entire series where he motorcycles across America. It's really, really cool. I'd recommend it. It's like Dark Corners or something like that. I forget what it's called, but it's pretty great.
Google debunkers.
Also, Milo Rossi is genuinely just one of the best eggs. I fucking love that guy.
have some European socialist countries which look good on paper now.
Again, socialism is just the idea that workers should control their own workplace, which we have stable companies. In fact, the most stable form of company is a democratic worker co-op. They have a higher success rate than traditional capitalistic corporations. Workers are happier, they're more efficient, and like workers have more agency and they're more beneficial for like the local community, because generally speaking, the entire workforce isn't going to vote to move to a different country to pay the workers less. And also, the entire premise of socialism is just, what if the predominant model of production was democratic worker co-ops, essentially democratically run the capital in the country, democratically run and own it, so that instead of capital being in the hands of private investors or individual private owners, Like, just have it run by the people who fucking work there and spend
Now
their
I'm
lives
imagining
there.
a possibly new Jack trolling Jack in a very Diogenes way.
But they've still witnessed the continent slide into irrelevancy. I mean, most political scientists are statistically either Marxist or sympathetic, and that's a completely failed political ideology by any metric.
Again, I would love for him to break down how it's a failed ideology on any metric. Name a couple. I would love to hear some.
Very rarely see political science try to explain the world or tackle causation, in that they're very reactive and emotional, trying to treat geopolitics like a...
Okay, my challenge to myself here is going to be to try and get through around 15 or 16 minutes of this in 30 minutes. That's my challenge. Go.
School playground where each side needs to follow the rules given by the UN or the adults. Politics is treated as a clean game in which it
The UN, famously not run by adults. Only children in the UN.
is the very opposite as a brutal Darwinistic battle for survival in the jungle. My friends who work in politics tell me that when they meet political science majors, there's no understanding that they'll actually know something about politics. It's pretty clear that the American ruling class, trained in the best schools, has zero comprehension how the rest of the world works from our foreign policy failures.
Well, yeah, political science isn't meant to teach you how other countries work. It's meant to prepare you for work here in the United States.
Example, the idea that China would just become a democracy as it became wealthier, that the Arabs would greet us as liberators for conquering them, the deindustrialization...
I'm sorry, China would become a democracy as it became wealthier. What you're talking about is fucking American propaganda, you dipshit. This is straight from, like, the US State Department. This is like you fucking moron. God damn it.
That the Arabs would greet us as liberators for conquering them. The deindustrialization of America would be a totally positive move, or that we should trust the Russians.
Okay, like the fucking again, you're either falling for the propaganda of the United States or the corporations that want to move the factories out so that they can have lower labor costs. Because the factories don't give a shit about people in the Rust Belt. They care about their profits, not people.
Were all opinions which the most educated political scientists totally backed. Furthermore, they backed these in the most arrogant...
Would you say most companies have a similar structure to a communist authoritarian dictatorship? No, I would say most companies in the United States right now have dictatorial or totalitarian structures. Like... you can be fired for no reason at all in the majority of states. I wouldn't really say it has anything to do with, like, authoritarian communist ownership.
Entitled and annoying way possible, where they shut down all criticism. Our political science establishment is taught to just rationalize whatever the ruling class believes, with no understanding of the fundamentals that power how the world actually works. I mean, for Christ's sake, as an example of profound naivete and arrogance, the idea of the end of history is so delusional, where Francis Fukuyama wrote a book in the early 90s.
Yeah, because fucking neoliberalism is stupid as shit. Yeah. Complaining about capitalism again, my dude.
Saying that liberal democracy was the end point of the human condition, and I heard some people say that his argument was misconstrued, but he did believe this was the start of a utopia, and he called it the age of...
I am not going to read any more of these text walls in the name of getting to our goal time.
The last men, which is funny because when Nietzsche invented that term, he meant it to be this horrifying dystopian society which would get totally crushed by the Ubermensch, and that's just ironic. But even if Fukuyama was more intelligent, and I still think he was delusional, the Western elite took these ideas to mean that we had no major political issues left, that there would be no philosophic, religious, ideological shifts, and that they didn't have to govern anymore because their system was so self-evidently superior to all others, which means this incredibly...
Yeah, who does that benefit? Whose bottom line benefits from, hey, we've reached the end of history, time to loosen regulations because we are no one would do anything bad to get more profit, am I right?
naive and arrogant theory
Who benefits from that, I wonder? Think about it for half a second.
has been held onto for decades as a raison d'etre for the elite not to do their job. And that's just utterly ridiculous, and it's deeply evil in a roundabout way. I was once having a conversation with a fairly important academic.
We have to defend liberal democracy from both fascism and communism that are both rising at the moment. Nah, I don't think you know what communism is. You've been in this community for a long time, and I've seen you talk about this. I don't think you get it. I think you do not understand the fundamental thing that is being proposed by socialists or communists.
He was kind to me, and I won't share his name out of respect, but some of you would know who he was, and he told me that he didn't read books written before, let's say, 1990, and he was shocked I was reading books from the World War II era. He also said he didn't make any arguments which didn't immediately relate to statistical evidence, which doesn't really make sense logically. The idea that
Do they mean Marxism-Leninism? No, because that's not on the rise right now. Let's be very clear.
you just use statistics is an aesthetic decision which stems from the Rand Corporation in the Cold War. He's also an anthropologist too, which is strange since that field is built off understanding humans internally in a complex way. I was talking to a friend about this and his reply was, they're doing this to avoid falsification. If you can
The conservative argument is not that corruption doesn't happen, but that it just does, and you should really go back to work and not think about it. Well, yeah, no, the conservative argument is that corruption does happen, but that we should avoid corruption by leaning into the impulses that would lead to corruption in a more organized way, i.e. capitalism. Don't you think they tried your system during the early Soviet Union and it fell apart immediately? No, they didn't try that in the early Soviet Union, number one. And number two, we have the structures I am describing in modern day America right now. We have democratically owned and operated businesses.
Jack, part of my autism is a person's voice is really important to me, like how it sounds, and Rudyard doesn't sound bad, but it does a white noise effect. It feels like sludge between my ears.
Nathan, that is correct. A correct observation. It is white sludge. So, number one, okay, well, Alan Smith, when you're like, well, the Bolsheviks destroyed worker democracy before the Russian Civil War was even over, so then they didn't try it. They ripped it down. You're proving the argument we're making here. Like, yeah, if a bunch of people with guns come in and kill anyone who's doing the idea that you're saying wasn't successful, then yeah, I guess if a bunch of people come in and shoot the socialists to death, I guess that does mean their project didn't succeed. But that isn't because of a flaw in the model. That's because of power being exerted to consolidate power. Like, you are describing two different systems, and it doesn't really fly in the face of the fact that we currently have democratically run and operated businesses here in the US, and you created a system that was so weak it allows power-hungry autocrats to immediately come into power. You just said they were killed before the Civil War was even over. I don't think you understand your argument. Okay, but number one, that argument is bad, and I want you to understand that it's bad, and you should feel bad for making it. And number two, that doesn't really preclude the argument I'm making that we have democratic co-ops right now here in the United States that are very successful, and in fact, some of the oldest companies in the United States are democratic worker co-ops. And also, my argument is just, we have them. They work. The workers there are well compensated and happy. And they clearly stand the test of time. And all of the data we have on these business structures indicates that they're superior to privately owned corporations. And my argument is we should have more of these superior and more stable organizational structures for our
Jack,
labor.
Didn't you know? Communists were killed before Marx.
Indeed, indeed. Show the data. I'm not having this conversation right now because it's 2:42 in the morning and I want to go to sleep so that I can have sex with my partner. Like, fuck you. You can have this conversation on a new day, but I'm telling you, the data exists. I've looked at it. I've spent years talking about it on this channel. The fact that the King Arthur Baking Company is one of the oldest, like, democratic worker co-ops in the country, and you're sitting here being like, no, it's impossible. It would never work. Like, that's just fucking stupid. That's just fucking stupid and ahistorical. And the issue here is that we have an option between two different modes of production. One that makes fucking trillionaire dipshits like Elon Musk, and the other that makes workers livable and happy and able to pursue what they want. And I think that one of those is more preferable. And if you think that the Elon Musk model, the model that consolidates all that power, is the better one, then we just have a fundamental disagreement. Okay? And that's not going to be overcome because you just think it's fine to immiserate millions of people. It's fine to cut the aid to hundreds of thousands of children because it leads to the tax cuts that benefit the wealthy, because the wealthy are the ones who own the world and make the production possible. And if that's the case, fuck you into the sun. You have no place here. But if you're willing to listen and you're willing to absorb new information and you're willing to believe that a better world than just working for some corporate stooge is possible, then you're welcome to stay. But I need you to understand that, like, what you're advocating for is exactly the thing that is leading to the rise of fascism, because what you are advocating for is what created Donald Trump. It is what created the robber barons, and it is what killed the New Deal in this country. You are standing for the forces of Pinkertons and bosses alike that have spent their entire history in this country turning people into property, killing people for their land, and doing mass genocide with no consequence. And I just cannot abide it. And it is disgusting to me on a deeply profound level. So, that being said, I think a better world is possible, and I'm going to go with building socialism. Like, I'm sorry. And if your argument is, oh, well, they were too weak, then let us be socialists with the ability to defend ourselves. Let us look to models like the folks in Rojava, who have taken up arms and defended themselves for the last decade while maintaining the ability to have a more equitable feminist and socialist society, despite being in one of the most war-torn places on the planet. Oh, but it would never work because people would just kill them. God, fucking stupid. That's like saying, well, you have better ideas for how a car should run, but, you know, someone mugged you and killed you with a gun, so those better ideas were clearly bullshit. I need you to understand how fucking stupid that argument is.
Keep your data input small for the type of information you accept, then you can manipulate the result. This is something which you see in economics, where they refuse to look at the data from before World War II. That's utterly insane, since the time since World War II has been less than a historic blink of an eye. I think the reason academics do stuff like this is if they were to look at the longue durée of history, they would find conservative things like monarchy, religion, or social traditions would work the best. However, we know the field of economics today must be heavily bunk just because it created modern monetary theory. Economics is one of the less demonically possessed humanities since it's more statistical, but that doesn't stop biases with framing. For example, Marx shoving in the labor theory of value or Marxism into economics for the longest time.
Yeah, you know, that classic thing where people shoved the labor theory of value into economics, almost like the yeah, that's workers make the value. If you just own a building and no one's in the building, that doesn't create value for anyone. You actually have to do work, and workers do the work. It's why they're called workers.
which are theories that do not work on any level with statistical evidence. However, a free market consensus has gradually emerged among economics within the last lifetime, in which practically
It's called Keynesian economics.
every book on the topic will now admit that the free market is the ultimately correct way
I probably said that guy's name wrong. For whatever reason, I struggle with pronunciation.
to run an economy, although many will say things like strong social services will further the results of the free market. That being said, the creation of modern monetary theory will forever doom the historic narrative around our era's economics. Modern monetary theory is the dominant economic theory of the world today.
Modern monetary theory is fine. Like, especially with the US dollar, because the US dollar is the, petrol dollar. It is the mode of commerce for money. But like, the issue is neoliberalism,
Why
my
does
guy.
shoving the labor theory of value into economics? Sounds like a way nerdier kink than I thought was possible.
Well,
I am the intellectual equivalent of an assault rifle.
Sake Tanuki, thank you for the 2 tier 1 subs.
Which believes that if we print infinite money, it will make the economy grow equivalently for basically magical reasons.
No, that's not what it means. It just means that, okay, look, to really summarize this concept, modern monetary value needed to be created because capitalists were hoarding so much wealth that it was like money wasn't circulating around the economy. Because we live in the United States and because we have the globally adopted petrol dollar, we're able to do something that very few other countries are able to do, which is print a ton of money and put it into circulation, because it turns out that money does its work by circulating. If it just sits in one spot, it actually is really detrimental to an economy. It needs to circulate in order for it to function as a holder of value. And the fact is that we currently have a billionaire class that is hoarding more wealth than goddamn Smaug the Dragon from The Hobbit. And the fact that fictional dragons have less money than our current billionaires, and it might be an indicator that perhaps our system is deeply, deeply fucked.
The fact that serious economists can co-sign on this, which is basically madness that anyone can see, shows how morally bankrupt we are as a society. Everyone knows this is a terrible idea. You can't just print infinite money.
It's not about printing infinite money. The entire point is keeping money circulating. So you print more money to ensure money circulates. The issue is, under capitalism, it gets all siphoned up into the billionaire class, which means they get more and more power independently. It is a problem because they want to usurp the power of the government, which is why you have people like Peter Thiel and Mark Andreessen right now trying to overthrow some degree of US sovereignty.
Worst thing is that this is the culmination of Keynesianism.
Like, if you want to know more about like what they're doing, you can read The Network State. It's all laid out there for free by folks like Balaji Srinivasan. So they are, in fact, trying to seize sovereignty over the United States in whole or in part in order to maximize their profits.
Who furthered mass government debts and spending under the auspices of helping the economy. However, each time, it just pushes the average person further into poverty and increases inequality or inflation. To finish off the human sciences, psychology is a weird mix today. I think some theories of psychology have done a pretty good job of modeling human...
There's a reason why all of the boomers have nostalgia for the 50s and 60s and the 80s. Yeah, unless they were certain groups of people during those times, life was just so much better in the 1950s and 60s for some people.
Behavior and have the potential to be seeds for a coming new paradigm or breakthrough. Others are utter garbage. It really depends on the first principles level of analysis for the human psyche that they're working with. Also, how much they actually look at the evidence. For example, the Freudians or most modern psychologists.
Alan Smith, I have lost all faith in your ability to know history, so forgive me.
just assumes that if you analyze something or let go of repression, that those things by themselves will help you psychologically. Alternately, that all human behavior is motivated by sex. On top of this, 90% of scientific papers in psychology have never been replicated, so the entire field could be bunk and we wouldn't know.
Well, no, you would know because there are people who go to psychologists for help. And whether or not they are sufficiently helped would be, again, one of those things you could track, etc. I'm starting to think this guy doesn't know what he's talking about.
Funny that Freud was seen as a very rationalistic, serious thinker where he'd talk about things like the Oedipus complex or penis envy, while Jung, which integrated psychology into the broader scheme of world religion and human history.
Carl Jung's ideas have been thoroughly debunked. Like, putting him up on a pedestal like this is just stupid bullshit.
Was seen as an insane pseudoscientist. It speaks to the cognitive biases that a certain type of leadership class had for the last century. Finally, if the numbers of therapists have skyrocketed at the exact same time as mental illness has over the last few decades, without the therapists lessening the mental illness.
The issue is, Alan Smith, unlike your example where, you're like, oh, well, during the Civil War, the people who were actually trying to do socialism were destroyed. Unlike that, we had Keynesian economics for the past century or so. And the capitalists were not content with that and actively undid the system that you are talking about. Because the system that makes capitalists powerful and rich, capitalism, consolidates too much wealth behind them, and then they themselves destroy the system. And so the issue you're running into is that structurally the system you are advocating for destroys itself.
We'd know if it were bunk because they dispatch the pirate known as Google Debunkers to take care of it.
Google Debunkers.
About a pirate, the more you know.
Something has gone very wrong where psychology isn't actually healing people.
No, it's because more people get diagnosed with depression. Let's just see, US teens with major depression. Gee whiz, can anyone think of an event that might have happened starting in like 2008 or 2010 and then ramping up? Anyone think of what might have happened around that time? Oh, that's right. It's the rise of social media and also the conservative, adoption of social media in order to spread fear and build up power for the new fascist movement we are currently embroiled within. It's almost like that's bad for all that shit in your brain.
Something has gone very wrong where psychology isn't actually healing people. As a shared theme for all of this, what an effect of these factors are is that incorrect theories...
Yeah, exactly, Melanie. It's the 2008 financial crisis. It's almost like we had the 2008 financial crisis and then never recovered and things only kept having more crises, like COVID. Now we have the fucking AI bubble that's gonna pop.
Will mean that the attempt to fix problems will just fail in the general public. So you can look at the failures of public policy and then compare it to the failed ideas. To switch from the humanities to science, keep in mind that science is not my area of speciality.
Yeah, no shit, Sherlock.
I don't really know anything about the topic, and I pride myself on reading a few books on the topic, which is not enough. And I know there are...
Yeah, they didn't have any science books in Philadelphia, so how could you possibly have learned science?
Lots of people in this audience who know way more than me, so feel free to call me out. If I'm being honest, I don't really understand physics. The thing is that I've gotten to the other side of the Dunning-Kruger in the humanities, so I realize that someone who's just getting into history will not have the correct comprehension on even basic topics compared to a master.
Dude, you are spouting ideas that were debunked 100 years ago.
faster. This is why I'm careful about giving scientific opinions. One of the techniques I use is that since I'm a fairly good judge of character, I use that in academic fields where I don't have a lot of knowledge, where I will look for authors who are clearly honest and very intelligent.
I graduated at the worst time. The paralegal profession is slowly getting taken over by AI. Well, the good news is AI is very stupid and bad at what it does. So they're going to come crawling back to you for the human input that's necessary to correct the fucking dipshit AI.
I then trust their opinions by delegation. My issue with physics is that these wise people are wildly contradictory. For every opinion from a smart person on physics that I hear, I'll hear another very smart person who says the exact opposite. Then they...
Yeah, almost like they're coming up with different scientific theories based on the evidence that's available, and then the theories get tested and either proven or disproven.
Both act like their theory is completely self-evident, and the other side is an idiot. However, as far as I can tell, the debate in physics is between a minority who still hold the mechanical Newtonian worldview, which isn't even an accurate comprehension for Newton himself, who was a Hermetic schizo who was...
Yeah, that's because when people talk about Newtonian physics, they're not talking about his fucking... They're talking about his ideas on physics and the math that he created. They're not talking about how great his idea was to drink mercury.
Basing his principles off alchemy, and then Einstein's school...
Yeah, he also based his decision to drink mercury on alchemy. Not his best idea.
Emerged around a century ago, which said that the laws of physics are relative based on context. At the speed of light or time...
Exactly, Smelanie. Lawyers are going to need trained paralegals really, really badly because otherwise they're going to wind up doing shit like citing AI hallucinated cases that don't exist.
Varies by stuff like gravity or the scale. What I've also heard...
Oh God, I'm sorry.
Are relative based on context. That the speed of light or time varies by stuff like gravity or the scale.
No, it doesn't, actually. It's a fucking constant.
I've also heard is that Newton's vision works better on a smaller scale, but then Einstein's on the larger. However, there are several holes in Einstein's vision.
No, Newtonian physics and Einsteinian physics work fine together. The issue is between Einsteinian physics and quantum physics. God damn it.
What I find confusing here is that physicists keep talking about these intractable issues in their field, with Weinstein, for example, saying that the entire field is bunk and controlled by the regime.
Yeah, Weinstein also claims to have a study that he just isn't going to show anyone that claims fucking magic is real. Like, dude's a fraudster.
The thing I found confusing, and again, I'm just a historian who's shooting off a shotgun here, is how many of the seemingly intractable issues in modern physics that physicists keep complaining are impossible to solve were already thought through by pre-industrial societies. The paradox of quantum entanglement was just called the law of sympathy in the Middle Ages.
It's not a paradox. It's a physical phenomenon. And the law of sympathy is not quantum entanglement.
The idea that there is a separate dimension which controls the matter in this one, which a lot of modern physics is dependent on and they see as inexplicable, is called the divine. The issue...
That's not what modern physics is predicated on? Like, I'm not an expert on this by any means, but I do watch SciShow, Anton Petrov, and also Space Time. So I know a couple of things about physics and space, and this is very incorrect. This is very, very incorrect.
Views with particles jumping in and out of existence make sense if you believe the pre-modern idea that reality is a dream by the gods.
It's so stupid. My body's rejecting the idea. Is he on ayahuasca again? No, he's just like this.
The experiments that showed that the perceiving of matter changes its structure is also something that every major pre-modern culture believed.
It's really convenient if we all just live inside of a dream, because then we can just dream harder and dream our way out of any problem.
Consciousness controls reality. The thing that I found curious is that these conclusions were fairly obvious to me, but I would never hear physicists talk about them. Mark Andreessen recently...
See what I mean, though? Like, he name drops, like, all of the worst people, partly because they're aware of him.
Got information from the White House that the state has been purposely stalling research in physics ever since the early 70s. When I saw that around 6 months ago...
That's really fucking stupid. And not true? Oh my god.
I knew that the physics community would immediately start to say that consciousness determined reality, and lo and behold, around a month after that...
Yeah, you know who I don't trust when it comes to information about the government? This guy who has no fucking idea what he's talking about and has a fucking egg for a head. This isn't photoshopped, by the way. This is just how Mark Andreessen actually looks. Egg.
One of the biggest physics journals was dropping that as their main story. For context, what I find so funny in this is that within a month or two of the regime admitting they were holding this back, the physics researchers suddenly said the thing that I thought was an obvious conclusion. It meant that
You have convinced me I should habitually read books. You should. Reading books is a great way to exercise your mind. And when I have time to do more reading, I'm going to be so fucking happy. I have so many books I want to read. I have like a big box of them like right over there.
Regime was explicitly preventing this result from coming out due to the implications. People like to think that belief in God or the spiritual...
Yeah, this, by the way, is from... Like, it's not... It's from an actual article. This is the top story about this man from 2015 in the New Yorker. Like, tomorrow's advanced man. This is him, everyone. The advanced man.
Is some low IQ, stupid opinion to have, but you can be either an atheist or a religious person with the current physics evidence as it exists.
Yeah, you can, because physics is about physics, not fucking theology.
Both of them are reasonable or educated. The thing is that the managerial class does not want you to believe in God.
Did you know you can believe that eggs are vaguely round, and that also oranges come from trees? Did you know you can believe these two ideas at the same time? May wonders never cease.
Odd, because if there's part of some broader plan, it firstly means that people should trust the plan, not the managerial class, and it also creates structures which stop the managerial classes and the state's growth of total power.
Okay, wait, I need to see. Where, show the transcript. Part 3. At 56 minutes, we have set, okay, I do want to beg your forgiveness. I need to set the speed higher because I need to go to bed.
Which will be a consistent theme in future parts of this video.
Oh, that's too fast. 1.5.
Part of the reason that the science can be so skewed today is that scientific innovations normally occur with 1 to 3 brilliant people developing an idea out of their own internal monologues.
That's not true at all. Look at literally, I don't know, the creation of the internet, or like cell phones, or I don't know, the fucking atom bomb.
Projects become impossible with larger numbers of people like that, except with a hierarchy like in
or like the entire project to build a fusion reactor.
Film studios, since the project becomes getting that many people to agree.
Hope you doing wells.
Hell yeah.
Riverboat dance.
Vinny Vega, thank you for subscribing.
Something which you can't do for works of originality or genius. Another element is that science is a tool of power or legitimacy in our culture, and so academia...
Has he never seen how many people make indie movies? It's still a lot of people.
Is totally in bed with the regime for support or funding. When you have research papers with thousands of names on them, alongside universities receiving enormous amounts of funding, either from large corporations or the government, genuine innovation or truth-seeking becomes a liability. You develop cultures of conformity which train people for their entire academic careers.
No, what you're noting is that a lot of this is driven by capital investment, and capital wants a sure return, not risk. Like, so a lot of research is dictated by the return on investment rather than the actual benefit it's going to provide to society.
In self-censorship. This is how you end up with some of the most educated people in history propounding the idea that a man can be a woman, or that ending civilization and printing infinite money is the moral thing to do. The system
God, you don't understand any of what you're talking about, man.
Gets off on making people submit to it, to a degree in which it will kill the entire culture as an insane power move. This ties into potentially the most controversial topic of this video, but the entire purpose of science is to throw out ideas and test them. I don't understand this culture today where questioning taboo notions is seen as a moral failing. I never agreed to that moral code. In the grand scheme of things, this is not a hill I will
What idea are you about to throw on the table that's so bad you're hedging your bets like this?
Die on, and something I want to stake my reputation on. I don't know if this is true, but we should at least check. How is not checking in line with Western values? Why are we just being turned into intellectual slaves? That being that there's a significant amount of research into the paranormal, which academia has not investigated at all. One example is that the decades of research the CIA put into spirituality, in which hundreds of people visited the spirit world in a replicable manner, and the army backed up this research independently. I made a video on the topic. The CIA
Yeah, and it was absolute bullshit. So, folks, his argument is that the CIA definitely discovered how to send people into the spirit world and affect the real world, and is also simultaneously trying to ask us to believe that the CIA, the good-hearted, kind-hearted agents at the CIA, would never have misused that power at all, and also would then let us all know about it. It's really fucking stupid.
CIA also used remote viewers to spy on government military bases and to read statistically significant numbers.
I'm going to Google this real quick. Yoink. In the early 1990s, the Military Intelligence Board, chaired by the Defense Intelligence Agency Chief Harry E. Soyster, appointed Army Colonel William Johnson to manage the remote viewing unit and evaluate its objective usefulness. Funding dissipated in late 1994 and the program declined. The program was transferred from DIA to the CIA in 1995. In 1995, the CIA hired the American Institutes for Research to perform a retrospective evaluation of the results generated by the Stargate project. Reviewers included Ray Hyman and Jessica Utz. Utz maintained that there had been a statistically significant positive effect, with some subjects scoring 5 to 15% above chance. Hyman argued that Utz's conclusion that ESP had been proven to exist is premature, to say the least. Hyman said the findings had yet to be replicated independently, and that
Riverboat Jack is going to town. All the viewers gather around. Twitch and YouTube and Swishy streams. All that content is bursting the seams. Politics, gaming, and plenty more. Your sense of fashion you'll adore. So grab your stuff and hop aboard. We're going straight to Jack's Discord.